I can
and he's like,
kick the shit out.
yeah,
of you.
he's like, this left one, you can have this one. This is 6 months in the hospital. This right one, this is instant death.
That's
Which one do you want?
Mirko Krokov, he has a saying: left leg hospital, right leg cemetery.
That's basically what my dad was saying to us. And he never physically hit us, but that threat was enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's a very strong man. He had huge hands compared to me. And I'm like, I'll fix the wall. I'll fix the wall. So he had a very poor mindset. And because the poor mindset sunk in, that anything that was damaged in the house, we had to fix it all ourselves. Duct tape, whatever it was. He hated spending money. He hated that, right? Unless it was for himself. He would spend money for himself, for sure.
Did you guys live in your house? Like, did you own this house?
Yes.
Okay.
So, my mom, when they finally divorced, she did make there was a little bit of equity in it.
Yeah.
But, we had, like, people help us paint the house. He never would hire anybody. We never got government assistance. We never got church assistance. We never got, like, any type of assistance because my dad wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Instead, he would
Too
launder.
proud or?
Too proud. Okay. Way too proud. And he would admit that at that time. So you can kind of see how the relationship wasn't a healthy one.
Yeah.
We'll put that way. I didn't have a good example at all of what to be, how to treat women.
And that's the thing is, I'm surprised you ended up like you are. And that's what we're going to cover. But I'm just surprised you ended up as normal and as good of a dad. And
I appreciate that you say normal, but let me explain normal. I don't want to be normal. I'm extraordinary. And the reason why I say that, is because normal is like, when I think of normal, I think of average, and I don't want to be average.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. That's where my mind goes, and that's just me. But I see what you're saying. Like, I'm not in prison.
No.
I'm not out there committing crimes. I'm not an addict anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not, like.
And you would think, like, chances are, but isn't your whole family like doing
we're all doing really well.
Yeah.
Like the crazy thing is,
that's the craziest.
Yeah. And we
10 kids,
we managed. Man. Somehow
Where
we
did you
figured
fall
this out.
in the order?
I was right in the middle, 6.
Okay.
Number 6.
Okay.
Turtle number 6 came in picking up sticks and tricks and doing flips. My sister wrote a book that had it's called The Herd of Turtles. Yeah. My dad would joke all the time when we were kids. He'd be like, we're off like a herd of turtles, because he'd be sitting in the car waiting for all of us to find our shoes or our jackets or whatever. And he wouldn't even help. So he would just be like, we're off like a herd of turtles, right?
You lost a lot of crap.
Yeah. And it just took a long time to go anywhere with 10 kids, right? And so he called us the Herd of Turtles. So my sister wrote a book several years ago and had like turtle number 1, coming in, and that was her. And then there was turtle number 2.
She's the oldest?
Yeah, she's the oldest. Yeah. And she had a story for each turtle. And she even illustrated this book. Like, she drew it and everything. It was pretty cool. And she had it published. And just a small, made a few of them. But she ended up writing about me, number 6. And I was the one that came in doing flips and tricks. And it's like this little turtle jumping off this house. So part of that was I would have to say probably the most energetic in the family. We all had our role, like a different type of role, a different type of characteristic, personality. And I was the one that would we could get most people to try it, but I would do flips off of a 20-foot house. Oh. I would do, I wanted to be a stuntman, right?
You just were always trying to impress your brothers and sisters.
Everybody. Trying to impress everybody. I was trying to impress myself to prove that I could, I'm serious, prove that I could be stronger than my emotions that I was trying to bury.
That's like the perfect mindset for what you do now for a living. Because you are always going after a goal or whatever. But yeah, I really respect that. And that's kind of how I grew up too. Like, always trying to be the center of attention and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was definitely the one that was always trying to be the center of attention. And my brother always called me my older brother. He'd always call me a show off and things like that. And that caused a riff in us for a while when we were a little bit older, until we like talked about it. I'm like, dude, I look up to you, man. Like you are. He literally, you guys, I got to tell you, he's a genius. And if he listens to this podcast, I would love him to, because there's a lot of really good stories and that are on our podcast that I think he would love. But my brother is a rocket scientist.
Okay.
He's highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And
I believe we've talked about him before, yeah.
And I look up to him, right? Mm-hmm. So for me to hear him call me a show off, it's like, dude, like I brag about you, dude, like about you, man.
Yeah.
And but we've worked through stuff like that too. So back to kind of like the childhood stuff. I always wondered why my dad was always like gone. He wasn't present. So even when he wasn't working and he was home, I didn't know he was home. He'd lock himself in this room. And this room, for the longest time, I didn't know what was in that room. And one day I decided to break into that room.
Yeah.
My curious mind and being the active kid that I was, I'm like, dude, there's like no respect for anybody's space. And, so we break into his room one time, and there's just tons of porn. There's VHS tapes. I mean, just tons of serious. I'm not joking. Like it's like VHS tapes. Right? Some of you young people listening to this don't even know what those are. Just kidding. But he had like all sorts of stuff in that room, and so of course I got curious, started watching them, like that kind of stuff. We would, it sounds crazy, and I'm not happy about this, but I have to tell you the story. I'd bring over girls from the local neighborhood, which I have to say we lived in a very white trash area. And I'm sure all the other neighbors would say we were the most white trash, but then I would say, I don't know, maybe that family was, maybe whatever. We were, I admit it, we were. It was just a poor part of Orem.
Okay.
And anyways, I mean, some people, that's just where they could live. That's fine. I get it. That's where we could live at the time. But it seemed like everybody let their kids do whatever they wanted. Yeah. It seemed like, anyways.
No responsibility.
Yes. Or they were the family that was like, don't you dare go down to that house. Right? Don't you hang out with those chases. But so I'd bring over girls from the neighborhood, and we would try every position that we would see in the videos. Yeah. And we're so young, it's not like anything actually happens, if you know what I mean. We're so young, but you get this little boner and like you practice. It sounds so gross and so like these, I couldn't even imagine like one of my kids doing this kind of stuff. Yeah. But it didn't, it's like you knew it was wrong because there was obviously a reason why my dad locked the door. Yeah. But when nobody was around, it was like all of us kids just did whatever we wanted and we'd try everything. So my brain started to change the way I viewed people, the way I viewed females, the way I viewed.
Porn will do that.
Oh, it destroyed my brain.
Young mind.
It destroyed my brain to where that's all I thought about for a really long time. That's literally all I thought about. So my parents finally get divorced, right? And my mom all of a sudden gets pregnant. And we're like, wait a second, Mom, how are you pregnant? And she's like, well, your dad keeps sneaking in. Oh, my God. Like, they were already divorced, and he keeps sneaking in. And because he needed his fix, right? Yep.
And that's all it was to him.
Oh, yeah. It was. I mean, I can't get too personal with my mom's side of things. Yeah. Maybe we could have her on here someday. But, okay. That would be hard. It's hard for her to talk about this kind of stuff.
I'm sure.
And I love my mom. She endured a lot. And some of that endurance required her, because of the situations, required her to block out what was really going on. Yeah. Right? And I don't blame her for that. Because you develop this defense mechanism to protect yourself and to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So she would block everything off. It was almost like all the stuff that was going on wasn't really happening.
Yeah.
So she doesn't remember a ton of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we remind her, like, no, this happened and everything, and wow, like it's she.
Do you think that that's real, or?
My dad called it a gift.
Okay.
He said, your mom had a gift. He told me this only several years ago. He's like, your mom had a gift. She could forget everything so that she didn't feel guilty about it. He's like, I've lived with guilt.
Yeah.
He's like, and it destroyed me. That's how he felt. He was suicidal. He was, I mean, like he went to a really dark place for a while because of all the guilt that he felt from how we were raised.
Can you imagine like the emotions he was going through?
I know.
Like,
I know.
It's just crazy to think about, like the emotions that he was dealing with on a regular basis.
Yeah. And he had such a smart brain and a great memory that, like, I don't think anything was undone. Like, he could remember all of the stuff that he did, all of the stuff that he didn't do, like the protection and the helping us and the, saying I love you or anything like that.
Yeah.
He remembers all those things that he did and didn't do that, like, it overwhelmed him and he became very depressed.
Yeah.
So my mom, she gets pregnant, right? We're back at that time. She gets pregnant. She has 2 twins, or, well, I should say twins, right? Not 2 twins, so 4. No. She had 2 little girls, Michaela and Katira. And, I'll give a little shout out to Michaela because she does listen to our podcast. And
Michaela,
you're friends with her on Instagram, yeah. And I love them so much. When they came,
is she the youngest, or
she's the youngest?
Okay.
Yeah, there's Katira, then Michaela, and they're, I mean, like by minutes, right?
Yeah,
minutes apart.
And just think about like how she grew up and how you grew up. Was it completely different?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at this point, my dad was already out of the house. So
she didn't even know that side.
She didn't, and she even said, like, when my dad passed away, she's like, well, I didn't really even know him. Like, I didn't really know Doug. She would call him by his name. And, or Paul, and we'll get into that because some people, she doesn't call him Paul, but other people call him Paul, and we'll get into that.
She would come on the podcast?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. She's been through some crazy stuff as well. We all have. But hers was a different side of the, like a different raising.
It would be interesting to hear her trials compared to yours and see how much different they were. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, if she's doing really well for herself now, and everything. But anyways, so my dad was pretty much, we only saw him from that point on. We only saw him like not very often. Right. And it seemed like forever.
Yeah.
So my 12th birthday comes around and there we are. He shows up and he brings, the box of porn and the case of alcohol.
He wasn't around for a long
time.
Yeah.
For a long time. I didn't see him at all.
This is your first communication with him.
For a really long time.
Insane, man.
And it's like, he asked me, remember he asked me, he's all, so, are you having sex? And I'm 12. And I'm like, well, not really. I'm like, I've tried it.
Yeah.
But like, not really. Now that I'm like starting to mature and I can actually do some things. Yeah. He's like, this is what he told me. He's like, you know what? Just use these magazines. Use your hand. It's better anyways. That's what he told me. So he
get addicted to masturbation.
Yeah. And that's what happened. Yep. Total full out addiction.
Yeah.
And, because I couldn't even view a female in a respectable light. That it's like, if she wouldn't do something with me, then fine, I'd do it myself.
Yeah.
And
you'd take your dad's advice.
Yeah. Gosh. And I mean, I'm not proud of that because the thing is I've worked through all of my emotional things. This used to be really hard for me to talk about. In my 20s, like, I felt so sick about myself. But you have to remember when you go through things, guess who else you have to forgive? Not just my dad. I have to forgive myself.
Yeah.
Forgive myself for the decisions that I've made. Because those decisions were partially, and yes, they were mine. I own up to them.
Yeah.
And that's what frees me from the chains of them anymore. but also they were heavily influenced by somebody else. And then I have to forgive him for that heavy influence as well. And I do.
Yeah.